Hi, welcome back. I'm your host, Kelly, and I just wanted to say Happy New Year, and hopefully everyone survived and stayed warm during last week's, what did they call it? I guess Alaska. I don't know. I think we're going to get another round of that next week, if people are correct and reported in the news. But I just want to say Happy New Year. Hope everybody is doing well. I hope everybody is staying healthy too, because I know that in my household, myself, the baby, and his mom and dad, we've all kind of passed it around and been sick. So this is my first week back recording since the holiday, just because I pre-recorded a couple episodes because of the holidays. And then last week I was actually sick, but I hope everyone is doing well. And today I actually have someone that's really close to me. She's not one of my children, but I consider her one of mine. She's actually my daughter-in-law. So my son David is married to her, and her name is Victoria. Yep. So, and God kind of laid her on my heart a little bit after I recorded the New Year's episode, just in my daily prayer, journaling, and, talking with God. I was, just kind of looking forward to this year, 2025, and what he kind of laid on my heart for me to have other people come on. Because like I've talked about before, I know that I have a testimony, and there's different seasons in my life that will resonate with some people, but there's probably other people that God is going to bring across my path and put in my life for their story to come and talk about their testimony or their story, if you will. And so today, Victoria's here to talk about, it's a touchy or a probably a little bit scary topic to talk about, but I have her today to talk about grief. And so she lost her dad a few years ago, actually in 2021, and God just kind of laid on my heart. I know that grief is a hard subject for a lot of people, or it's hard for anyone that has lost, not necessarily a hard subject, but anyone that has lost a loved one. It's something that I don't know that you ever recover from. And I think everyone's journey is different. And so he laid her on my heart. And I know that it's probably not just for her, but for maybe someone else out there that is dealing with a loss of a loved one or a close friend. In your case, it was your dad. But I thank you for coming on, and I really did want you to maybe just kind of tell us a little bit about your dad, if you want.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
My dad, his name was Charles, and he was a really out there kind of guy. I feel like anyone that, even if you didn't know him that well, if you came across him, you would definitely remember him. I feel like very eccentric and outgoing, very passionate in everything that he believed in, and very purposeful in his words and stuff. Honestly, all traits that I hope that I kind of got from him, which is funny because when I was a child, those are traits of his that I guess I was kind of embarrassed of. Like, we would go out somewhere and he would be his goofy out there self, and I would just stop. But now I've learned to appreciate it, I guess.
I was gonna say looking back, probably those are some memories that you're really fond of.
Yeah, right? They're what made him him, and it's beautiful to remember those parts of him for sure.
So I actually never met him in person, but talked to him on the phone, and then heard him almost daily when he used to call you or call David, and you pretty much described him like he was just a little quirky, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
But he was such a sweet guy. I can still kind of remember his voice and him saying Vicky is what he called you.
That's what it was.
So, but I guess when you said what he believed in, he was very passionate about it. And so I guess with that, were you alluding to like his faith and how he lived his life?
Yeah, so he definitely loved God and loved God very deeply, even in the midst of all his hardships, whether it came to health, emotional stuff, or financial stuff. Like, he always kept his trust in God. Even times when I was a kid where I was like, there's no way we're going to get through this, or like, this is so hard. Like, he never doubted God, or at least not outwardly, and it was just beautiful to see.
Yeah. I don't know, did you really understand it at the time? Like how strong his faith was?
As a kid, no, definitely not. And then as a teenager, I just feel like teens, you don't really pay that much attention.
Yeah.
But like, I always knew it. Like, he was always in church, like as long as his health allowed. He had a church home that he was very stable in, and yeah, he definitely loved the Lord. And
Yeah.
was very passionate about his love to the Lord. Like, had no shame in being outward with it, which is beautiful.
No, it really is. I mean, I think he instilled a lot of those things in you, though. You may not realize it, that some of that kind of comes out. I think you mentioned like some of the personality traits or things like that. But I do think that he gave you, and your mom too, I'm sure, gave you a solid foundation in your faith. So hats off to him. I really do wish I had met him, but I felt like I had, just in the conversations that either if I was there and y'all had him on speakerphone, or I think once or twice we talked on the phone. It was right around the time that Roman was born.
Yeah.
So
probably like missing me on the phone call.
Yes, couldn't get you. I couldn't get David, so he called me to find out maybe were you with us or with me, or had I talked to you. He was very much.
That was always him. Like, ever since I was younger, anytime I'd go somewhere, it's like, which is also, I guess, something I'd say I regret now, is that I didn't answer every time or couldn't answer every time.
Yeah,
but he was definitely adamant about those phone calls.
Yeah. Well, I think you just appreciate it. I think that's part of growing up too, and maturing in age, is the things that probably annoyed you when you were younger. Maybe now you like cherish them so much more.
Definitely.
So,
For sure.
And then something else that you mentioned, like vocally. So I know this about him, that he sung, right? Mm-hmm. And so is that something that he did in church? Like growing up, did he like, was he singing in church or?
Honestly, not that I recall. He would always write music, and it was all Christian music.
Okay.
And the different churches that we went to growing up, he'd always pitch the songs to them and like hope that their choir would sing it, because he had a good voice, but I mean, could be a little pitchy, and definitely I don't think wanted to sing in front of the church. But there were a few that I remember that would sing his songs, and that was very big for him because he loved writing music and playing the piano when his hands still allowed him to.
Okay.
He was talented at that too.
So he did have quite a few like health issues.
Yeah, so most of my life that I remember, he was sick. He had diabetes, and it just really took a toll on him. He also grew to get neuropathy in his hands and feet, so like losing sensation in them kind of. And honestly, other health issues that I'm not sure of, because he was very, I guess, holistic and not much into going to the doctor and stuff unless he had to.
Yeah.
But definitely, I mean, I do remember some parts of my early childhood that he was healthy, but it definitely, his health decreased over the years.
Yeah, as you got older.
Yeah.
So when he passed, obviously, you're here in Texas. You grew up in South Carolina, right? We didn't talk about that, but you grew up there. So you had moved to Dallas, and that's actually how you met my son, your now husband. But so when he passed, he was still there in South Carolina, and you're here.
Yeah.
And obviously you knew he had some health issues, but I don't think we're ever ready to say goodbye to our loved one.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but I will say that the silver lining to him, not that anybody wants to see their loved one go, I guess something that you could be, I guess, grateful for would be the fact that you had just gone to see him. Because once you moved to Texas, I think you had been here, you told me.
At that point, like 3 years.
Okay.
And I had maybe gone back once.
Okay, so it had been a couple of years since you had actually seen him. And So you were able to go back and see him before he passed.
Yeah, actually, like, he passed a couple days after we left, which I think is crazy because, thank the Lord, I mean, no coincidences, but he got to meet his grandson, his first grandson.
And David.
Yeah, and David, and his best friend.
Yeah, and that was prior to y'all being married as well. So, and why I said silver lining, but you now know, like, no coincidence, and maybe his health had been declining for years, and so maybe that was him. Now he met Roman and he got to meet David, and you knew you were going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely. That is something that gives me a lot of peace, and I do think about that when it came to, the day that he passed, that I feel like he was able to be confident and secure because, obviously I was his baby girl and he always said I was his world, but just like he knew and loved David and trusted him, and I feel like he definitely was at peace with the fact that his baby girl was going to be okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Well, I'm crying, but no, and that is just something that probably gives you a sense of peace, and obviously because he believed, that where he is he's no longer sick, he's no longer in pain or, any of that, but when I said I don't think anyone's ready to say goodbye to their loved one, that's the human side of us, right? Mm-hmm. Wanting them to be here forever.
Yeah.
But after he passed, do you feel like you really worked through those emotions? Because I know you're here, he's there. You weren't really able to say goodbye to him other than your last visit with him. And then he passed, and here you are dealing with going from a daily conversation just about to now he's no longer here. I know personally for me, I have lost like my grandmother, but she was 82, and I think those things we somewhat prepared for it, but not really. Because like I said, we're human and we want them here with us forever, right? As long as we're here, we want them here. And then I had my boss who passed away and stepdad. But I think grief everyone has a different journey. It's different for everyone. And it's not I'll be honest. I think in the past, I've kind of looked at it as there was levels to it.
Absolutely.
But I don't know that that's true. I think there's different depths of grief and loss, just in my kind of praying about it and then reading different books and looking up things about grief. Like I said, God laid you on my heart for a reason, and you just said, I didn't have to say it, you said, there's no coincidence, right? So I just wonder, how do you feel like you've been able to work through it? If it's been something that you feel like you were able to talk about in the beginning, or if it's just been recent that you feel like you're able to?
I think that's a tough question because, like you said, grief is definitely it's different for everyone. And, there are those 5 stages of grief that people like to say, but it's not a linear thing. Yeah. And, you might go through this and that. But in the beginning, it was definitely hard to talk about. I think, obviously, growing up, seeing his health, and he would say it himself that he thought his time was coming soon to be with the Lord. So in a way, that made the acceptance part of it a little easier because a lot of years I anticipated it happening. But honestly, you asking me to come on the podcast and me having to divulge deeper into my emotions, I realized that I don't know that I fully have gone through them. And I think that's okay because grief is definitely something I feel like you're going to hold on to for the rest of your life. Yeah. I think it definitely, you can get stronger and it feels less heavy, but it's something that I'm still working through, definitely.
Right. And I think in the beginning, did you think that, okay, one day I'm just going to stop being sad about this, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's definitely a thing that comes in waves. Right. Because there's a time period where I'm good, and then something will remind me of him, and then I get sad. Mm-hmm. But then I think it's okay to sit in that sadness for a little bit, but also the Lord gets me through that, and
Right.
I come out strong again.
Yeah. No, I read a quote from someone, and I can't remember who they were, so I'll have to go back later and look. But it was just saying that grief is it's a journey. It's you're passing through it. It's not a place to stay.
Yeah.
Like that sadness and that actual. I don't even know that sadness is the word for the loss of a loved one, right? I feel like it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, in those 5 stages, they say depression,
Yeah.
which I definitely think is real.
Yeah, no. And like I said, being honest, I've looked at people that have lost maybe a sibling or like a close friend, or even like in my case, I said my boss, and I didn't expect to feel the sadness or grief that I felt for him because he's just my boss, you know?
Yeah.
But when you spend a lot of time with somebody like that, and obviously this is your dad who you grew up with, it's like a gaping hole. And when it happens unexpectedly, I think your mind, because we're human, right? Our minds are not able to like reconcile it, because you think you're going to get a phone call, or that person's going to walk through the door, or you're going to get a text, whatever it is, and it takes it a while. I remember thinking about when my grandmother passed, and I was actually there in the room when she passed, which is an experience all in itself.
That's what my friend who just lost her mom went through, and I cannot imagine that.
It's so you've given birth, obviously. I likened it to when you give birth. There's just this presence that comes over the room, and it's unexplainable. And it is that when they're leaving this earth, it's that. So to me, it's, again, there's no denying that there is a God.
Yeah.
Like there's a presence that comes over, and we were in the room with her, and I feel like we were all handling it very well. And then you just feel this heaviness. And I do believe that was when her spirit was leaving this earth, you know? And so that is another type of hard to have to deal with. But I think even though I was there in the room and watched her leave this earth, right, I still sometimes would be driving or thinking of something that reminded me of her and think, oh, I'm going to call her and tell her about this, which is, you have to stop yourself and be like, oh, wait, she's not here anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you somewhat deal with that.
Definitely happens. Honestly, I haven't noticed as much recently, but my dad was like the smartest guy I knew and literal genius. And so whenever I'd have any kind of question, I would call him. So for a while, there was definitely a lot of moments where I needed to know the answer to something, and my first instinct was like, let me call my dad, he's gonna know.
Yeah.
So I definitely think the denial of it all is real, and
That's probably,
it's hard.
Yeah. No. You just have to tell David to step his game up. He needs to be the guy that you call for all the answers.
Yeah, definitely.
I know that it's something that I think you're gonna probably work through for the rest of your life, And so I just kind of wondered if there was anything that you feel like because last week, we actually were going to record this last week, and it would have been on his birthday. His birthday was last Wednesday, the 8th.
Yeah.
And so that just kind of got me thinking about ways of honoring, someone that has passed. And I know, like, after my grandmother passed away, we did her services, and we did like a viewing, and then she was cremated. And after the service, we went and did like a balloon release. Not that you're really supposed to do that because of the balloons, but whatever. Don't cancel us. But, this was some years ago too. Like 7 years ago, I think. Anyways, and so I didn't know if there was anything, obviously, now that you feel like you do or can do to honor him, to honor his memory. Because obviously Roman was a baby, and now you have Josiah, and I know that they will have questions, and you want them to know about him, their Grandpa Charles, as they get older?
Yeah. I think one thing that we did do, I say the first 2 years that we haven't done since, is his favorite restaurant was Jason's Deli because he was a diabetic vegetarian. So he was very particular when it came to his salad bars, and he really liked their salad bar. And so David and I had gone and eaten there just on his birthday to remember him. I think a thing I can definitely do is sing his birthday song to my kids growing up, because he had written a birthday song that he would call me every year on my birthday. He even started to call David on his birthday to sing the birthday song. And honestly, I think it's really important, and it's something that I haven't done over the years, is like to keep his name alive. Like, I don't talk about him much. Like, I don't bring him up because I guess I don't want to burden people, and also I feel like it is like an awkward conversation to have with people, because I feel like there's no right words to say. But I think it will be important, and something I do want to do is just to keep his memory alive and do talk about him and the nice things, and it feels good to do that and not just pretend. It's like, just move on, because I don't think that's something that you do. Like, you can't just move on from it. You always have it in your pocket, but it just gets lighter.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. I mean, that's an awesome way to, remember him doing something that he enjoyed doing on his special day, and then, just talking with the boys about him. And I think in doing that, even though they're little and they don't remember him. Obviously, Josiah.
Roman claims to. I don't know. He says stuff to say it sometimes, but I show him pictures and he's like, "That's my grandpa." So it could just be obviously me showing him. But
yeah. But probably your faith, be a way to share. Because I would say I was going to ask, like, what's one of your favorite memories of him? And so I don't know if it would be like going to church or hearing him sing his songs. Birthday, whatever.
I feel like there's so many. I think top one is him getting to meet Roman and David. Just the joy on his face, and just him and David cracking jokes with each other. And then obviously him getting to meet his grandson. That was a beautiful moment. Like childhood, he did a lot of things. I mean, he was a real political guy. Going with him to rallies and stuff was an interesting thing to see, that definitely unforgettable. There's so many.
What about, I know he loved cats.
Oh yeah. Something about his porch was like a welcome mat for strays. So I think by the time he passed, he had like 7 stray cats. I think. Oh
my gosh.
Yeah, they had all. Yeah, and one was had a amputated leg, and he was his favorite.
Was it? No, I think I do recall him worried about the cats, sometimes more so than he was himself.
Oh, 100%. I think maybe in a way those cats like replaced me when I was gone, but a lot of his worry was on the cats. It was like, you're worrying yourself sick about these cats. They always come back.
Yeah. No, because I think that was one of the conversations, or not one of them, but some of the conversations I overheard is when he's calling you about one of the cats named Callie?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I remembered.
That was our first cat.
Okay. Yeah. I thought I remembered him saying Callie. Something about Callie. She was gone or missing.
Yeah, she liked to explore.
Okay. So, but yeah, no, I think you're, obviously, it's been a couple of years, and so I think you're probably right where God wants you to be in the process, and obviously talking about it. So I am thankful that you were willing to come on and talk. I just know that it's something that God does want us to walk through and heal from, and like I said, not stay there. I do think that when someone passes, you're probably wanting to go back to the way it used to be, but I don't. And something that I read was like, your life's never gonna be the same, but I don't know that you would ever want it to be the same, because that person is no longer here, right? But it's just a daily walking through that.
There's definitely a lot of like what ifs, or if only I had done this, or talk to him more and stuff like that. That is a daily struggle sometimes.
Right. Just maybe wishing you had one more conversation with them, or
Been able to go see him more.
right. But
Not been so embarrassed when I was a kid.
right. But no, I think it's all in God's timing. Like I said, because I want to say I had been trying to get you to go and see him for a minute.
Yeah.
And then that summer, y'all were just like, okay, we're going to go. And so I went with y'all, but I didn't want to take away from y'all spending time with him and doing everything. So that's why I didn't wind up going and meeting him. But I really do think that was probably a really happy time for him to be able to see Roman, because obviously he'd seen him in pictures and talked to him on the phone, and same with David, but never like actually spending time with them until the week prior to him passing. And then I guess another question that I was going to have or ask was, I guess, and tell me, not really like a regret, but something that you wish that he was here now to see.
I definitely wish he could have been here to see me get married. I know that was obviously something he really wanted as a very conservative, strict Christian, I guess. And I knew he loved David, and so I think that would have been a really happy day for him. Obviously, seeing Roman grow up, he always said that he knew he would be a smart kid, and he definitely is. And then seeing Josiah be born, seeing me be a mom, seeing David be a dad, all experiences that, like, I get to see people I love have with their parents, and it is something I wish I had and wish he could be here for.
Right. And he's not here in person, but do you feel like there's times that you feel him around you, or things that remind you of him, and so you're like, that's like one of those God stop things, or God, little pokes where you're like.
Honestly, more recently, I've noticed that I've been saying, which I can't remember right now, but saying little phrases that he used to say, like goofy things, and I'm like, wait, that's my dad, that's not me. So that is weird, because I've never said these little quirky things he'd said, but all of a sudden they're like coming out, and I'm like,
Yeah, okay. So just little phrases that he would say as what, like, you remember growing up.
Yeah.
Can't remember any.
No. I just said it last week too.
Well, I feel like he's a little bit of him and David's conversations. That's where David's gotten some of his little funny things that he says to you, like where he called you Vicky instead of Victoria, because your dad he calls you Vic sometimes, and I think that was like a little nickname that your dad called you instead of your whole name.
No, it was definitely really cool that, I guess, maybe a little less than a year that they got to know each other, and honestly, David will say that was his best friend, and it's so beautiful, and I feel like a lot of people who have lost their parents don't get to experience that, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but I can't imagine a life not being married to a man that loved my dad.
Right.
So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. No, and your dad loved him. Definitely. It was just something about their little relationship. And I know whenever he passed, I feel like David outwardly showed it a lot more, and I kind of felt bad, like you had to be strong for David because of how much he was grieving the loss of your dad.
Yeah, and like no shame to him or anything, I feel like that definitely made me suppress some. Also with the fact that I had to raise my 1-year-old.
Yeah. You're being a mom, so.
Yeah, but it's definitely proof to the fact that people grieve differently, and sometimes it's hard to understand. Like I remember there were days where he's like, "How are you so okay?" And I'm like, "I'm not. I just have to pretend to be." You know?
Yeah. Another thing that in my reading was I think where we are when we lose a loved one or a close friend, a loved one, because close friends, you love them as well. It all looks different, right? And we sometimes I think we push it down and think that we're okay and we move past it. But this is a prime example of it'll come back up. And a lot of times it's God bringing it back up so that we can walk through it, work through it, be healed and whole. And so I think that's kind of what you were probably doing. Like you said, nothing, no offense to David, your husband, or to Roman, because he was a baby and you just had to kind of carry on with life,
Part of being a mom.
Part of being a mom, yes, or part of being a parent. But that usually goes to the moms. I will say that you don't get to be sick. You don't get a day off. So that's another show episode. But so now I think just you've had some time go by, and it may be where God knew, okay, she can actually breathe and she can actually work through this now. Because not too long after your dad passed, you were pregnant with Josiah. And so that's a whole nother set of, emotions and hormonal stuff going on. So I think he equips us with what we are able to go through at the time. He equips us with the emotional and the load, if you will, of what we're able to handle at that time. But now, Josiah is 2, going on 3, and then Roman
To be 5.
basically a teenager.
For real.
So, and for David, not to take it off of you, I think I've seen him deal with grief in another a close friend of him, that he went to high school with and then also worked with, and it looked pretty different.
Yeah, I was going to say that because we started dating not even a year after Dalton had passed, and I had was working through that with him almost because it was still very fresh for him. And it was definitely different experiences. Further adding to that grief is different. Because
he wasn't someone that you would see a whole lot of emotion out of. But just goes to show, even though your dad, Charles, was not David's dad, he just had that bond with him, and they weren't even in the same state, didn't live, close by.
And they talked more than we did.
No, I know. This is one thing that I thought about in all of this. I do remember that I think David had the last conversation with him on the phone.
Yeah, the day that they estimate that he passed,
Yeah, so that may have weighed pretty heavy on David too, and obviously I know for you it did, because I know you had vocalized that to me.
Because he called me that day.
But I don't know that there's ever anything that we could say or do in our last conversation. It's one of those.
You always regret it. I could have done more.
Or said more, or I should have said this, or I should have stopped and what I was doing, whatever. But I think it's just one of those God things, and I really do believe strongly, the fact that he had seen you, met David in person, and he knew that you were going to be okay.
Yeah, for sure.
He knew that. I think it was just something in his spirit that it was okay for him to leave.
Yeah,
obviously.
Because I do know that he had been struggling a little more, but it was always ups and downs. Yeah. But I guess it obviously had gotten really bad at that point, and so I do feel like it was just a breath of she's gonna be okay. He wanted to be with the Lord. He obviously didn't want to be sick and in pain anymore.
Yeah.
So
he loved God, and that is something that I've personally, I think, I've never been afraid of death, but I get emotional a lot of times when I think about me not being here, but because of my kids. And so now I just realize, I think it's my faith has gotten stronger. I know where I'm going, but I just now pray that God keeps me here as long as my kids need me here.
Yeah.
If they're good without me, I'm good too. That's how I feel. But I mean, I would like to be here for many years, obviously.
Forever, please.
Yeah, for all the kids and for all of y'all. But I do think that he, knowing just a little bit of him and his faith walk, he absolutely was okay with going to meet Jesus. So I think that was, I know that's where he is right now.
Yes, for sure.
And all of this, us sitting here and talking about it, I really do hope that it has helped you. And I know that it's like tomorrow you're not going to be like, okay, I'm good. But it's just kind of maybe even scratch the surface of some of the things that you have kind of pushed down. And God is saying, it's okay to, work through it now, or give it to me, really, truthfully now.
Definitely coming on, and you asked me maybe a month ago almost, coming on has made me have to dig deeper into those emotions and dig deeper into it all, which I haven't had to revisit as deeply. And although it hurts, it was something I needed, I think. And especially with my best friend losing her mom right before, or like her mom being very sick in the hospital right before you asked me, back to the nothing being coincidental, like that had already had me kind of back in my thoughts of my dad, and then you, and it just all made sense. And I think it's very important for me to not push it all away and act like it's going to go away, because it's not. And I'm thankful that you asked me to come on, because it's obviously a hard topic and I can obviously mask it all away, but it is something that I can't just ignore. Yeah.
And then too, in wanting to honor him, and obviously the kids to know about him, to know him and love him, their grandpa in heaven, then absolutely you have to talk about it. And so kind of what you were saying is someone else walking through the initial stages of grief kind of like almost brought it back up to the surface. And I think those are probably things that are going to happen over your lifetime. There might be things, you'll be fine for months or weeks, and then all of a sudden there's going to be something that is probably going to make you revisit, or you feel like you're going all the way back to the beginning. You and I both know Miranda, my niece, obviously she lost Alex. And so I do not know how she has walked through that every single day. And obviously now she has Miko, Nayeli, and Gavin, but I think there's never a day that she probably doesn't think about Alex and the life that he would have had if he was still here. And all
She's
of those.
Definitely one of the strongest moms I know.
Yeah. And so I think that's where in my mind I've just like never been able to understand the levels of grief. And like I said, I think there's just, it's all hard and painful and sad and depressing. But I think there's different depths of it.
For
and
sure.
So my hat's off to her of how she's been able to navigate her life through this, and the same with you, because I'm not super close with my mom, but she is here still on this earth, right? And so not having, you can have a disagreement, but not having that loved one here, it's a totally different feeling.
Yeah, like you said with your boss, you don't know how it was going to affect you until it does.
Right, very true. And with Paul, my stepdad, who's really the only person that I grew up and knowing as my dad, I feel like for him, obviously he had some health stuff too, and it was unexpected, but I was able to do something. That's kind of why I brought up the fact of, how do you feel like you can honor him and do something. I was able to, on one of my trips, take his ashes with me and did that, and it just made it that much more special to me. I think I'll always remember that trip because of that, not just because it was Italy and it was beautiful and all those things, but I think that just made it that much more special.
Sure.
So I hope that next year or whatever, moment that you feel like is a special moment to try and honor him. I don't know, it could be a family tradition that y'all do, kind of like the Jason's Deli, or maybe if one of the boys shows interest in music or something, just kind of giving them a story or talking about, or even letting them hear or see the music that he had written. And
I've definitely got recordings of him singing at my voice family.
yeah. So, but like I said, I do thank you. And I really do. My hope and my prayer is that this has helped you, and then help somebody else out there that is actually just now walking through a loss of a loved one. And I just pray that they'll lean into their faith, and let God walk them through it, and just know that it's okay to be working through it years later, because you're never going to arrive at this place of, it's kind of like our faith, where you never come to this place of, we got it all figured out, we're good. The same with grief. When you lose someone, I just don't think that you're ever able to overcome that loss. You just learn how to live with it.
I think it's important too that a lot of people, I think, obviously in the beginning stages, everyone's comforting and reaching out, but after that, it comes to a lull, and people, I think, sometimes think that the best thing that they can do is just like be quiet and keep it to themselves and deal with it by themselves. But I do, and I've learned through this process, that I think it's important to be courageous about that grief and, let people know, and have your loved ones like be able to give you that compassion and love, that that you're not going through it alone, because a lot of people have experienced it, and there are people that can be there on that hard walk with you, because being alone is not good.
Yeah, no, it sucks. I think what I hear you saying is like, if you're the person like a friend or a relative or a coworker of someone that has lost a loved one, it's okay for them to ask you about your dad or your loved one that passed. It's okay. And actually helps, or makes you feel better.
I think at first I definitely probably would just sob when someone asked me, but I do think as I've grown, like, it is so special to me. Like, it makes me feel like loved from them, like that they would even, because it is obviously a scary topic for them to bring up. Yeah. But to even speak about my dad, I think I'm very grateful to anyone that does.
Well, I think for me, I'll just say me, like sometimes you don't know if you should bring it up, because you don't, like you said, in the beginning stages of grief, I think, or when it's like fresh, you're like, I don't want to upset them. I don't want to make them cry. So maybe don't talk about it. But for someone that has lost a loved one, like when someone else brings them up to you, it makes you feel like they mattered. They and just makes you feel good to be able to talk about them. Yeah.
Like, and it can be a very lonely thing to go through. And I know from other people's experiences even that it hurts to not be brought up, like even if it is fresh, like people just want to just like, let's talk about something else. But like for some people, it is important to them to still talk about them,
Yeah. I met a lady in St. Martin that had lost her mom, and I just kind of asked her questions. And there was parts of me and I did tell her, I was like, if I'm asking you too many questions, you totally tell me, I was like, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But the more I talked to her, it's just like, she just wanted to talk about her mom. And I think it was like a whole 1 year anniversary of her passing. And she actually took care of her while she was in like her end stages of life, like Alzheimer's and stuff like that. So I think it was just kind of, and it wasn't me. I just kind of was just talking to her because, she was there solo traveling as well as I am. We had just met. And so just kind of inquiring, asking her stuff just as much as she did about me. But I think it just was helpful for her. And it wasn't like, I think it was all God probably, but I do think that because she never said, no, I don't want to talk about that. I think it was probably a little therapeutic for her. But again, that's not me. That was obviously God.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking through me. Yeah, and putting it on my heart. So I think now I will be more mindful of that to, just even if it's been some years, to maybe just ask, hey, how someone is doing, or ask about, ask someone, to tell you about their mom or their dad or their loved one that did pass.
Yeah, definitely.
So, well, I thank you again for coming on.
Well, I wanted to share just a few verses that I had saved, because obviously definitely my strength comes from the Lord. And in the super dark moments, there were, obviously I looked up like Bible verses about grief, and they definitely stuck with me, and I just wanted to save the two.
Okay.
So one is Psalms 34:18, and it says that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. And that was very special to me because obviously God sent his son down to earth to live a human life, and he did firsthand experience all these things that we experience, like him grieving his best friend Lazarus and his cousin John the Baptist, and even the grief he felt before he knew he was about to be crucified. So it's like, not to diminish what we feel and what we're going through, but Jesus felt it all as well. And I feel like that's really reassuring to know that I can talk to him and he firsthand knows how I feel.
Yeah, he experienced it. And so we're not alone in it, like you said. Sometimes it does seem very lonely and isolating, but if you have faith, you know that you serve a God that has walked through grief as well. And he knows it. He knows the depths of it. So it is absolutely okay. And he can understand all of your emotions, everything that you're feeling, even the anger. Because I do think that that is a lot of people stop at the anger.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that you didn't or didn't stop at any of the stages of grief. And like we said, you're probably still working through it. So, and did you have another one?
Yes. I guess kind of to piggyback off that, Romans 8:18 says, yet what we suffer now is nothing compared to the glory he will reveal to us later. And I guess just a reminder that, it's hard here and the things we go through is hard and grief is really hard. But we have so many beautiful things coming for us, not even just, heaven that he's prepared for us, but like, he is going to reward us with our faith and our trust in him. And even when we do feel alone, we're not. Like, even if it feels like no one that we are surrounding ourselves with know how we feel or are understanding, like, he always will, and he's always there. And that is such a relief to have when I remind myself of that.
Right. It's comforting, too. That I've read as well, and I think that's where it registered with me, that fact that I'm human and I'm selfish and I would want my loved one here with me forever, right? But our reward is in heaven. And so they're there with him in heaven. It's just to me that...
they have it way better than us.
No sickness, none of that. But, well, again, I do thank you. And so if you ever want to come on again, I'm totally fine with that.
It wasn't as nerve-wracking as I thought it was going to be.
And so before we close, I was going to say, today, we're actually going to be starting my own channel for the Empowered Podcast. So at the end of this, like I always say, if you will subscribe and share, and then, leave a comment, if you will, if you want to. If any of this has helped you in any way, or if there's a topic that you would like me to maybe talk about, or somebody that you want me to bring on. Maybe David, her husband. I don't know.
Oh, he could have a lot to say.
But I just want to thank y'all for tuning in. And until next time, bye.